are almost at the end of Philippians. Paul is about to close out this letter, but first he has something very important to oversee. In our text this morning, he urges the congregation in Philippi to live in a way that is conducive to community. So he urges this congregation to live in a way that is conducive to community. But before they can do that, there is a conflict among them that's going to have to be resolved. Two women in the congregation are at odds with each other. So Paul pleads with them both to be of the same mind. We've heard him say something like that before in this letter. In Philippians 2, verse 5, Paul says, "Let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus." And so now in the passage that Danny just read for us, we hear him make this plea to these two women. He says to them, "Be of the same mind in the Lord." You know, the Christian church and all of the denominations within the church and all of the congregations within those individual denominations, they are all made up of a multitude of personalities. And we don't all think alike, and we don't all act alike, and we don't all react the same way to the same circumstance. Diversity is the great beauty of humanity, and diversity is a wonderful thing in the Christian church. But sometimes our differences can make for sticky situations. You know what I mean? Our differences can make for sticky situations if we can't agree to disagree, right? Our differences can be a problem for us if we aren't willing to surrender our need to be right or our need to be in control. So I want to say this to you today. Our inability to be in relationship with other people, that is directly related to the way that our ego leads us. Get it? Yeah. Well, the Apostle Paul makes this request of us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verse 18. We heard Danny read that just a few moments ago. It says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. That is my favorite verse in all of Scripture. It truly is. I have it underlined in every Bible that I own and all of the different translations. And I really do, I truly do endeavor to live by those gracious words of wisdom. But I'm going to confess to you this morning that I don't always succeed. I don't always succeed. Because sometimes my ego gets in the way. And sometimes the ego of the other person gets in the way. But as far as possible, do you understand? As far as humanly possible, Paul says. And as much as it depends on me, it's my responsibility to offer peace and to live peaceably with everyone. So I endeavor to be at peace with every personality that I come in contact with, every person that I meet and work with and minister to and serve alongside. as much as it is possible and as far as it depends on me, I think I need to be a bridge of love, a bridge of mercy and of goodness between myself and another person. But you know, it's also up to the other person, right? It's also up to all of those diverse personalities that I meet every day, that I work with and serve alongside and minister to. What we offer to each other is imperfect, but as far as possible, each follower of Christ, actually each and every member of humanity, has the same responsibility to get along with each other. So Paul pleads with both of the women mentioned in this letter. Did you notice that? He doesn't say that one is right and that one is wrong. He pleads with both of them. I urge Euodia and I urge Syntyche to be of the same mind. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're always going to agree. It doesn't mean that they will think alike on every single issue that is before them. But it does mean that they have a role to play in their unity together. So Paul tells these sisters in Christ to love each other the very same way that Christ loves them both. But Paul doesn't actually stop there. He also asks the whole congregation in Philippi if they won't help these women mend their differences. I love that expression, to mend the differences. For me, it implies that you're taking two or more opposing perspectives, gathering them up, and then stitching them together in a way to create something new, something that is beautiful, something that is useful for the greater good. It reminds me of a crazy quilt that I got from my great-grandmother. You know what a crazy quilt is, don't you? A typical quilt, if you don't know this, a typical quilt has a repeating pattern of blocks. So you take fabric and you cut it into different shapes, and then you sew that fabric together so that it creates a particular geometric form. And most quilts are made by sewing those geometrical forms, those blocks together in a repeating pattern. And a lot of times a quilter will use some sort of coordinating fabric that is of different hues but that matches, or maybe it's all the same color. And they do that in order to make that pattern pop. But a crazy quilt isn't made with blocks, and it doesn't have any kind of a pattern. And usually, typically, it's made out of material that is left over from other sewing projects, so there's a really good chance that none of it is going to match. It looks a little bit random because all of the strips are different shapes and different sizes. And yet, they're sewn together in a way that creates a truly unique and beautiful work of art. Each of those individual pieces, those different strips of cloth, they're brought together in the same quilt for one united purpose. Life in community exposes us to a lot of different kinds of people, and a lot of different kinds of thoughts and ideas and opinions and perspectives. And some of those thoughts and ideas and opinions and perspectives are a little more informed than others. We know that's true. But regardless of the opinion a person holds or the things that they think about, each individual has this intrinsic value in God, their Creator. Every person then has something of value, something of worth to offer to the community as a whole, to the greater good. And in that greater good of us, God is working through divine grace to gather us up and bind us together, to sew us together for one united purpose of love. And Paul appeals to the church in Philippi to help these sisters in Christ to mend their differences and then to work as a creative whole to bring about something that is unique and beautiful, something that will benefit all of them. But you know, then Paul goes on in a hidden sort of way to list some attributes that are useful for promoting healing and creating community. He first advises the congregants and his friends in Philippi to rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord. As Christians, we have a lot of things that should pull us together. I heard the Sunday school talking about that just this morning. There are a lot of things that should be common ground for us, but in the end, they end up causing friction. But always, we are united in Christ. Regardless of our differences, we are the same body in Christ. And in that we should rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, Paul says. And then he reminds the Philippians to be gentle with each other. I love that word, gentle. You know, a gentle heart and a kind spirit, words of love, actions promoted by tenderness, all of that helps to bind us together, to sew us one to another. Let your gentleness be known to everyone, the apostle writes. And remember, too, that the Lord is near. The Lord is near. Realizing that the Holy Presence is always near to us, it kind of encourages us towards better behavior, doesn't it? It encourages us to behave in loving ways, and to behave in love is to honor and to uphold and to value each and every person for who they are. Remember that the Lord is near, Paul says. And then he urges the Philippians not to worry about anything, but to pray about everything. So, okay, as far as it is possible, and as much as it depends on me, I have made it my life's work, really, to live at peace with all people. But in those instances when the relationship I offer is refused, when I'm met with hostility or with anger, with prejudice or with hatred, instead of worrying about what I should do to fix the relationship, instead of fretting over what that person might do or might not do in respect to what I offered them, then I need to pray. I need to ask God to be the support and the mediator in that relationship. And if I do that, then I'm not going to be dragged into the hostility, but I'm going to be guided and I'm going to be guarded in my heart and in my mind by the presence of God. Rejoice in the Lord. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. Remember that the Lord is near. Don't worry, but pray and remain in God's holy presence. These aren't just arbitrary injunctions, church. They all fit together in a nice little package to form a pattern for unity, for living in a way that is conducive to community, whether that is a family of 2 or a congregation of 70 or a city of 30,000 people. Paul offers us the makings of a beautiful work of art. We may be different, it's true. We may be different from one another, and when we're placed side to side, it might look kind of random and mismatched. But when we are sewn together in love, the result is always going to be unexpected, because our imperfect attempts to offer peace, they're going to give way to the imperishable and the perfect and the incomprehensible peace of God. A peace that surpasses all of our efforts and all of our understanding. And once we finally surrender to grace, and once we allow this serenity to embrace us, this holy benevolence to truly embrace us, then the design of community, that beautiful and righteous design of union, it's finally complete. Amen and amen. Will you stand and join with me now in the response to the word, number 885, Modern Affirmation.